We're back, America! I know you missed us. We didn't really go anywhere. If y'all could see the path of snack destruction that has happened in the past hour and a half,
snacks.
I'm afraid.
Belvita,
What do we got?
Some skinny
pop. What are those?
Skinny
mini
pop,
cakes?
mini rice cakes.
They're pretty good. They're sneaky good. Where you have one, you're like, oh, that's not bad, and then the next thing you know, you've eaten, 15.
The only kind of chocolate that passes my lips is ultra dark chocolate. Look at that, intense dark.
Did you eat those? You did.
I mean, I opened it. I had a piece. What are you gonna do? Not eat a piece of chocolate? What kind of human being do you think I am?
Oh, that's freaking awesome.
But we all know that dark chocolate's good for you.
It is. It's really good for you.
I don't know if it is. It's probably less bad than other forms. I mean, I know. I think milk chocolate's very highly sugared. White chocolate's not even technically chocolate, I believe.
Really?
Yeah. White chocolate is.
It's just chemicals?
It's I believe there's actually no cocoa.
Oh, there's no cocoa in
white chocolate, and so it's some kind of invention. Civilization never stops.
Fantastic. We are back. We are going another 90 minutes on camera. For those of you just joining us, welcome. We've been going since 10 a.m. We are going till 8 p.m. 10 hours today. Ask Andrew. The dad jokes will change on this, I think, throughout the day. Fall related, of course. And for those of you just joining, we are streaming on all of our social platforms, YouTube, our website. We'll be on Twitter later today. We just hit up Reddit. We are going on Quora later. We'll have special guests throughout, keeping it interesting. We started this morning with the Freedom Dividend breakdown, $1,000 a month, all Americans.
So what's on America's mind right now is when are you going to see more of Zach? And I'm
That is
happy
what
to
they're
say
all
that,
thinking.
that Zach is going to be spreading his wings shortly as spokesperson for the Yang campaign. So yeah, you'll be seeing a lot of this guy.
You, for better or for worse?
Yes, for better. America wants to see more Zach.
So
Zach,
much.
Zach, Zach. Everywhere I go, they say, Andrew, you're great and all, but give us more Zach.
That's it. You know that's obviously not the case, but it is fun to be along for the ride, guys. So what I want to do for this section, Andrew, is start off with some. We got a whole bunch of random questions which I think have been really fun, and then I wanted to talk about healthcare. We got a lot of those, and a lot of education too. Those are big ones.
Favorite things,
which they are, yeah. And I always thought one of the things that's interesting about you is you talk about the economy a lot, but you also have some really fascinating policies and good thoughts on literally everything.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I'll tell you when you're bad too, but this is stuff you're good at. So let's start.
Bad?
So fun.
So empirically bad. I think I've made some very bad sports bet calls.
Oh man.
That have and certainly I would never advise anyone to
to bet money.
Yeah, to bet money based upon my picks for any particular sporting event. That's for sure.
Yeah, some of your NBA picks are kind of bold.
Well, the NBA picks, I mean, the season long, it'll, even out. I mean, that's good. But I believe that my actual game outcome picks for the NFL playoffs and some other things were pretty poor in terms of win loss.
Yeah, that's true. You know what I will say? There were a number of questions on is your hatred, not hatred, maybe dislike for the Patriots. Now I have hatred for the Patriots. No offense to England, New Hampshire, we love you guys. But I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. I just can't do it. Yeah,
my brother's a huge Patriots fan.
Is he really?
Yeah, because he went to school in Boston, and so and to his credit, he followed them ever since they sucked. When it was Drew Bledsoe in the gang, before Tom Brady superseded him. Yep. But I mean, if you grow up rooting for, in my case, the Jets and to some degree the Giants, if the Giants are in the playoffs and playing the Patriots in the Super Bowl or whatnot. Right. And then obviously, you see the Patriots as the nemesis and arch rival. I
mean, they win, right? So there's obviously an element of respect you have.
Yeah, but the other part of it is that they seem to cheat a lot. There's a whole lot of cheating going on up there in New England. A little bit of spying
tough,
and Deflategate and a bunch of other things. And like Tom Brady's reaction to Deflategate was like, it's not like anyone died or anything. I mean, like that you remember that? Like, I think
his press conference. Did we lose a live stream?
Just the picture.
You can hear us.
You can still hear us.
So I guess I'll keep talking about this because it's not that important anyway.
Yeah. We can still talk, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I think his reaction literally was, it's not like anyone died or anything. And like, it's like, I mean, why not just be like, yes, I like my footballs nice and deflated. And we deflated some balls here in New England. And, and he could have been like, you could have had them fully inflated. I still would have beaten you all, which, was probably accurate.
The better accurate. Yeah, that was true.
But he could have been like, did I deflate the balls? Yes. Would I have beaten you anyway? Yes. Like that would have been cool. But instead it was like we
didn't do it.
No, it was like it's not like anyone died. Like,
oh man.
So there's just some real like non-role model type behavior going on, in my opinion. I mean, come on, dude. You're like married to a supermodel. Like you've got like this this super awesome life. Just be like, yeah, I deflated some balls.
I'm just like at this point, I'm just like a sore loser for so many years.
I mean, they've been stomping on your Bills.
They've been stomping on the Bills forever. Bills look. I mean, I love that team.
So Zach is such a diehard Bills Mafia member. It's very heartwarming.
I freaking love him, man. I love I love caring about something you have no control over. Because I think a lot of stuff we have a ton of, we have some control in the outcome, right? So our comms director is back there doing fly equals fly situation on the side, which I'm not showing you. Yeah, go or whatever you're saying.
Yeah, I miss having a very avid blind sports loyalty.
You've got some good questions in here too. There was someone from Atlanta, I want to find it, who was like, "What are you going to do as president to reverse the curse on all Atlanta sports?" Which I don't think is a fair question, but it was funny.
Shoot, man, the Falcons.
I feel bad for Falcons. I mean, I'm a Buffalo guy, so you can't.
Yeah, no, I mean,
yeah,
the Falcons lost.
But the Falcons is tough.
I think the Hawks are on their way.
I love Matty Ice, man. They may have different opinions, but anyway.
Yeah, the Atlanta Hawks, good GMing. That passing up Luka Doncic thing. Like, I pretty much thought any team that passed up Doncic was incredibly dumb. But I mean, the Hawks are making it work. Trae Young's outperforming.
That's true.
Well, we'll be down.
You follow the NBA really well.
We're gonna celebrate with Dominique. I think Dominique's coming in a little bit later, right?
I'd like that. We'd hope to. That's the plan.
That's Dominique Wilkins, human highlight film.
Love that guy.
Human highlight reel. Is it real or film?
I think it's real.
Human highlight reel.
All right, man. Let's if we could have just talked about Buffalo Bills, I would love
yeah,
this.
You can talk for an hour.
We could talk 10 hours at least, man. But that's not fair to anybody outside of
America.
Buffalo. Oh, come on, be nice. All right, so I'm gonna start. Let's start with healthcare. And the simplest question, we got this so many times, but I just picked one. Antonio on Twitter said, simply put, what's your plan for healthcare?
What is the plan for healthcare? To me, we're in the worst of all worlds right now with American healthcare, and it's like this crazy hodgepodge Frankenstein system that's gotten built on top of itself over and over again. Now, for people out there who like market-based solutions, healthcare is not the industry for you. It's like there are a lot of things in healthcare that just don't make any sense for marketplace competition. Right. I mean, just a short list is like you're not going to be an expert on everything. You become price insensitive, like as soon as it's you or your family member. Sometimes you're incapacitated and not able to make a proper choice.
Right. If you're sick, what would you not say?
It's like very hard to comparison shop. So there are a lot of things to make it so that it's like, okay, this is not like some kind of like individual marketplace participant type situation. So first you get that out of the way. And then you say, okay, what's the current system? So the current system is we have this giant private insurance industry. And in part as a result of that, we're spending twice as much on healthcare as just about any other country. we're at 18% of GDP, which in like a $20 trillion economy, it's like 3.6 trillion. And it would be one thing if we were all remarkably healthy as a result of all this expense, but we are not. We underperform by very basic measurements like infant mortality and really, it's like you look that up, you're like, whoa. Some of that is due to the massive income inequalities and inequities. I mean, and that plays a role, but really by any standard, we are not getting great bang for our buck.
Right.
And to me, the confusion around this is that people are like, oh, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? How can you afford it? How can you afford it? We are all paying for it. 18% of GDP again. Let's call it $4 trillion. We're all paying for it in ways big or small. And so if you happen to be employed while you're watching this and you have healthcare through your employer, then maybe you're like, ooh, my healthcare is free. It's like, of course it's not free because your employer is spending thousands of dollars a year on your healthcare and reducing your compensation accordingly. And so if you were to have a choice, and this is because I employed young people, I was a young person once upon a time. So if you're at a situation where you're like, hey, I'm 25 and don't actually use the doctor all that much, and then your employer were to be like, hey, would you prefer some like sweet health insurance that you're likely never to use, or a little bit more money in your paycheck? Of course you'd take the money in your paycheck because you'd be like, well, let me save that and then just make sure if I get run over by a bus that I've got healthcare. Like,
right, yeah,
that would be a win. And then your preferences shift when you're older, where it's like, please, please, please give me like gold-plated healthcare because I use it all the time. So there's like there are like shifting preferences over time that get completely obscured by the current system because you take the young person, which in a way is cool because you had to pool everyone's preferences and the rest of it. But the point I'm making is that if you think you're not paying for healthcare, you're paying for healthcare. Like you're paying for healthcare in terms of your paycheck. You're paying for healthcare in all of the prices that you ever encounter, because if you buy a good from a company, they're spending money on healthcare for their workers, and then they're pricing it accordingly. We're all paying the price because now all these companies are trying to push us all to gig, temp, or contract work because they don't want to give us health care because that's just the economic incentive. It's like,
what's the stat? You told me what percent of employers?
It's like 94% of new jobs are temp, gig, or contract jobs.
And then what percent of people get like health care from their employer today?
Right now it is approximately half. I believe it's 49% or 47% get their health care through their employer right now. So that gives you a sense of it. So if you think about all of those companies and all the money they're spending on healthcare, and then all of the impact on pricing and on your paycheck, and on healthcare costs if you interact with the system, it's essentially this giant hidden tax. And so when people say, how are you going to pay for it, how are you going to pay for it? It's like, well, look, if we take the same 18% of GDP that we're spending on healthcare, and we shift it from businesses and families, where it is in large part right now, and then shift it to the public sector, that's not really like an expense.
Right.
Like that's like a transfer of money we were already spending within our families and businesses and on prices, and then you shift it to the public ledger, and then you can do all sorts of incredible things to negotiate for lower prices, negotiate for higher access. The tough truth is that we have so much waste in the system right now that we do have to go in and say, it's like, look, why is this ambulance ride $12,000? Why is this prescription drug like $180 a month when in Canada it's like $20 a month or whatever it is? Like there are all of these crazy excesses in the system because we built this like hodgepodge on top of each other. And I'm friends with a private investor who looked at it and said that she had never seen profiteering at a scale that she sees in the device companies, the drug companies, and private insurers. And she says it's so extreme that she's shorted the whole sector because she's like, there's no way this can continue. And she backed my campaign because she actually is offended by it as an American. She's like, there's like this incredible profit taking at the expense of the American people.
Yeah,
like we all pay for it in various ways. So this is a very long-winded preface of saying that the current system is incredibly expensive, not very effective, designed to make maximal revenue from us, regardless of whether or not it truly makes us healthy. And the most extreme example of this is when a drug company is like tweaking their drug in a way that adds absolutely no clinical benefit, but just enables them to retain the patent for longer, or like a new use. It's like it goes through years of a particular use and it's about to go generic, and then they're like, hey, we changed the formula. It does absolutely nothing, but it extends our, it's like the only reason you would do that is not to benefit a patient, it's just to benefit your bottom line. So there's this rampant excess in the system, and many very negative incentives attached to it. I just got a question today on Reddit as one example, which was those TV ads we see for drugs all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wait, let's play act it. I'm gonna pretend or whatever.
Am I in this?
Like, yeah, sure, you can
Okay,
be in
cool.
it. All right. So it's like, Andrew's sad. Like, what has changed for Andrew? Maybe Andrew needs Reviva. And then there's like some picture of Andrew being like, oh, like now with Reviva, like things are better. And then there's a list of side effects being like, don't take Reviva if you walk on 2 legs, eat food,
It might kill you.
breathe oxygen.
You might bleed out.
Yeah,
your
side effects
orifices.
include like self-combustion, like like
Yeah, all of that.
like all the bad things. Be like, talk to your doctor if Reviva is right for you. So we all see these ads and we're like, okay, Reviva seems pretty terrible.
Well, it is a good question. Like, why are we doing this?
Why indeed? I mean,
Why
it's
are
just
we
for the
doing
bottom line. So, and who I've heard hates this is doctors, because doctors then get patients coming in their office being like, hey, heard about this Reviva? You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it's just shaping patient preferences. And of course, that's the whole purpose of the commercial,
Right.
because the drug company's like, ooh, like if I can get you to, there probably is a Reviva. I obviously made that name up, but there probably is a Reviva somewhere. Or maybe I'm gonna get like being like, cease and desist, Andrew, you're
We
insulting.
talked about Reviva.
You're insulting Reviva. And apparently we are one of only 2 countries in the world that actually allows drug ads on TV. So this is an example of the kind of behavior that would go on that would help the drug company's bottom line. Is it helping the public? Well, if you think that, in theory, the doctor is supposed to actually see you, figure out what's wrong with you, and then decide on an appropriate course of treatment, which may include various drugs, and then your doctor actually is a professional that would understand what the drug options were, they probably have a whole suite of experiences with patients taking certain drugs. So in theory, there would be minimal clinical value to having me see a Reviva ad.
Yeah. What's about like?
So this is like a pinpoint, like a microcosm of this whole matrix of incentives that we have in our healthcare system that we need to change. And I'm prefacing this by saying, if we were to truly get in there and try and drain some of the excess, there would be lost revenue on the part of drug companies, device companies, and private insurance companies. Of course, because you have to know, it's like if we're getting charged twice as much for our healthcare as other countries, then you're going to have a lot of excesses. And then if you tried to rationalize those expenses, then you'd end up contracting many of those firms' bottom line. And that is appropriate, because at this point, it's more or less a hidden tax on us, families, businesses. We all live in fear of getting that healthcare bill. Medical bills are still the number 1 cause of bankruptcy for families. So you have to drain the excess. And the way, this is all a very, very long-winded way of saying the plan, is that we have a Medicare for all plan that essentially grants us all baseline healthcare coverage. Now there are co-pays involved, because you can't have people show up and have like zero skin in the game, but the co-pays are relatively nominal. like affordable for just about any American, particularly after getting $1,000 a month. Show up and pay like a $30 copay. Totally fine, totally appropriate. So what we do is we take this massive expense structure and move it to the public ledger, and then the government can negotiate on behalf of tens of millions of us and say, hey, that blood pressure test, really inexpensive to administer. Instead of being $120, maybe it's more like $35. And then you try and drain the excess. Now, my Medicare for All plan does not eliminate private insurance in the way that some of the other candidates plan.
And a lot of people have asked that.
Yeah.
A lot of people. That's one of the biggest questions. Terry on Twitter said, wouldn't eliminating private insurance save the middle class more money? I can go down the list, right? But why do you want to keep it?
Well, so here's the thing: is like if we were to do it right, a lot of private insurers would go out of business because it makes no sense. Like if I had access to inexpensive healthcare or free healthcare, essentially, like free or near free healthcare, and then a private insurance company's like, hey, do you want to like pay hundreds of dollars a month for additional insurance? It's like, why am I paying for? Like, what am I paying for precisely? Right. But a lot of us aren't really paying that out of pocket. So here's where it gets interesting: is that if you're a company, all of a sudden your employees are covered by this public plan, and right now, if you're an employer, you're like, hey, here are your options. I'm going to pay for a proportion of it. And I've been in these shoes because I've been the CEO of a couple of companies now, and I very much remember spending all this money on insurance and then seeing the prices go up every year, and then having tough conversations with employees. Even though we were very generous, we'd cover like 80-90% of it. But then if you were to say, hey, look, your 10% just went up like a tiny bit, like, it's meaningful to employees. So if you're the company and you're like, you go to your employee and be like, hey, guess what? There's free healthcare. It's like out there, and you just go get it. I'm spending this much on your healthcare right now. You know what would do me a solid is if I don't have to pay for this healthcare for you, and you don't have to pay for this extra healthcare for you. And if you want, I can split the difference with you and give you some of the money in extra comp. And so would a lot of employees, if the Medicare for All was actually up to meet most people's basic needs, they would probably say, yeah, that works for me. And then you'd end up contracting the number of people that are using private insurance very, very quickly if we did a good enough job. To me, that it has to be the role of government to say, look, we can actually do a better, or at least cost-efficient job, and then actually restore a degree of discretion and competitiveness in private insurers. Because right now they're all just turning the dial and like ticking their prices up every single year.
Yeah.
That's their business model. It's like, has anyone ever gotten like a reduction in health insurance costs? It's one reason why it's breaking our back. I have a graph in my book, I believe, that's like, let's see if I can show it. This is going to be a challenge, so this might be very dumb, but we're going to try. Is that healthcare inflation is one of the main things that's breaking our back.
I'm laughing because I've seen you do this. Like, let me show you in my book. I've seen you do this hundreds of times.
Yeah.
To people in line when you're getting selfies.
Let's see if I can show it to
people. You
found it?
I
did. So here are like I'll see if I can do it. So there are like 3 lines. You can see it's probably not very visible. But the top line, the one that's the craziest increase, is school cost. So that's university. And that's up 250% or so in let's call it a 25-year period. It's crazy. Then the next one is healthcare. And healthcare is up it looks like it's annualized. It goes up from a base of 100 to 800 over looks like it's like a maybe 30-year period. So it's like 8x. And then the other line is other costs, which have been more or less static. So you can see that healthcare is one of the main sources of inflation because the business model of these companies is just to keep on ratcheting the prices up and up. So the plan, to summarize again, is Medicare for All, modest co-pays, but you have coverage, just one of those wonderful rights of citizenship. And then we shift the burden from businesses and families to the public sector that can then negotiate for lower prices do not get rid of a private insurance. Right. And then private insurers would then have massive competitive pressures because they're essentially competing against this very, very low cost alternative. And then you would see them hopefully bring that curve down or frankly disappear. And a number of them would disappear. And that's appropriate. I mean, you can't have environments where essentially you get to jack up prices on Americans every single year. And I've talked to hundreds of Americans around the country whose backs are being broken by healthcare costs, prescription drug costs, people choosing between like drugs and rent and drugs and food and drugs and childcare. And the whole thing is immoral. It doesn't make any sense. We have one of the only systems in the world where it's somehow tied to employment. And tying your healthcare coverage to employment has so many negative effects. It makes it harder to change jobs. It makes it harder to start a company. It makes it harder for employers to actually treat you like a full-time worker. There's an economic term called job lock. And many people have job lock. How many people watching this right now have thought for a moment, oh, maybe I'll do something different, and then thought, oh, okay, because of healthcare. So if you have healthcare covered through the public, then it will add to so much dynamism and creativity and business formation, all these wonderful things in our economy. And the key challenge you have to accept is someone will be like, oh, where's the money? And be like, look, we're spending so much money now, we're just going to shift it from the businesses and families that are currently spending it to the government. And there'll be massive cost savings along the way. So that's the vision. It's Medicare for all, but don't get rid of private insurers, and make it so that it's not like it's not even like a plan you have to buy into. It's just essentially
it's yours.
It's yours. And I've had family members return to parts of Asia and interact with the healthcare system, and it operates like that. They just show up and get a procedure, get a filling, get taken care of, and they walk out and are like, that was wonderful, seamless, it cost $40, like the whole thing. They're just like scratching their heads being like, wow. And then you come to the US and it's a freaking bureaucratic maze, and everything is so expensive that you're like, ooh, good thing it's getting passed to the insurance company, but we're all paying the price. Yeah, we're all paying the price.
One of the things, and kind of taking away from a lot of the questions we got, was that you haven't talked a lot about healthcare on the debate stage.
Nope.
And I believe it's because a lot of the debate for the Democrats is around cost. And I think what you just said is that the cost-based debate doesn't make any sense because we have the money.
Well, I do want to dig into one thing, and this is controversial, but if you look at it, we're spending a ton of the money we're spending on the last 2 years of patient life. We're talking about, in some cases, like tens, hundreds of billions of dollars. So that I met with a guy named Dean Kamen. You were there for
part of it.
For part of it. So Dean told me this incredible story that really, to me, encapsulates so much of what's going on in our system. So Dean Kamen is a freaking genius. He invented the Segway, is probably the most famous invention, but more meaningfully, he invented portable dialysis and this machine that enables you to essentially get dialysis in your own home. And right now, most people have to go to a dialysis center. As you imagine, there are millions of diabetic Americans and people who need dialysis, and their quality of life in these dialysis centers is not great, not what you want it to be. You get hooked up. It's very debilitating. And so Dean has this machine that enables you to do dialysis at home, improves your quality of life dramatically. And so you think, okay, people should be doing cartwheels and trying to do this, but they figured out that they don't make as much money if you're not in the center. The lost revenue is something like $100 billion nationwide. That would be lost because if you didn't have these very expensive, very miserable dialysis centers, then you'd be making less money. And so the lobbyists have fought portable dialysis tooth and nail, even though the data is incredibly positive and the quality of life is much higher. but people are like, no, you need to go to the center. And if you go to the center, it's not exactly like a joy.
Right.
I mean, it's the opposite of a joy. So this is an example of how like the money is driving the practice instead of our health driving the practice or quality of life driving the practice. And then, as usual in America, the lobbyists have control. So the lobbyists are making it so that portable dialysis is not the standard, and instead it's like get carted to these inpatient dialysis centers. And by the way, it costs us an extra $100 billion a year, like approximately. So this is an example of something where it's like you look around and being like, how the heck are we spending, $4 trillion a year? It's like things like that. It's like there's a way to save us billions and improve outcomes and improve quality of life. It's like, nope, can't do it. So it's things like that where you have to kind of break the stranglehold.
Right.
And if you succeed in that, so this is the kind of thing where the Democrats, in my opinion, are making a mistake by just like focusing on focusing on the cost is one thing.
Yeah.
And one reason why I haven't really gotten in on this is that obviously right now one of the key areas of contention for some of the front runners is their healthcare vision. So you have Bernie's Medicare for all, and then you have Senator Warren Elizabeth essentially saying like same thing, but with some different
ways to pay for it.
Different ways to pay for it that we're I'm I think going to see more of, and then Biden in another place, and so that's where the debate has been centered.
Right.
And no one thinks no one thinks of me and this campaign as like a healthcare driven campaign, and so it's not like it's like, hey, let's get the Yang plan in, but the Yang plan is to me the best of both worlds, and the key is to know that, and Bernie does say this, it's like we have tons of money in the system, it's just not being spent in ways that make us healthier or stronger. And then if you get caught in the cost conversation, it's like, look, we're already paying the price now. It's like if you get the healthcare off our backs, then we end up saving that money that we would have otherwise spent. We end up getting better prices. We end up getting paid more. Like there are all of these things that, and this is to me like the role of the public sector, because you have this crazy bought and paid for labyrinth mess that is defying any sort of
right.
efficiencies or things that are going to make us stronger and healthier. It's just like you can almost imagine. I visualize it as like you're almost connected to this entire like patchwork of pipes that are like plugged into your body. You know what I mean? And it's and you have to try and.
Well, I think what's hard for people to get their head around, and I've seen it in some of my questions. You have a pro business but pro almost big government approach to that, right? Where it's the government needs to do more, but this would actually be fantastic for business.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic. It'd be fantastic for people. It would also be fantastic for individuals, because right now we are trapped in place by our current healthcare system.
Yeah.
And if we had confidence that we were going to get the care that we need when we need it. So part of it is like if you look at how we can rationalize the $4 trillion that's being spent. That if you have things like, hey, like it looks like portable dialysis might save us $100 billion, but to dig into it, you'd have to take a hard look at the fact that we're spending hundreds of billions on extending patient lives by like the last 2 years. And in many cases, those last 2 years are not exactly high quality of life years. They're not like, right. It's not like that person's like loving it,
Typically, yeah.
And of course, in some cases it's 100% what we should do, that like you can't just like, have someone expire if you can save their lives or extend their lives and whatnot. But there are other cases where it's possible that the patient, him or herself, is like, look, I'm in pain. This is not how I would prefer to spend my last couple of years.
Right.
And right now, the system actually is designed to try and like pour tons and tons of resources into that case because the system does not care about that patient's preferences or the patient's health and well-being. The system just cares about trying to maximize revenue. And so if I'm an 89-year-old and you can make tons of money off of trying to keep me alive till I'm 91, then that's what you're going to do. If you came to me and said, hey, what would your preference be? Let's say I hypothetically was like, I'd rather spend like some time at home. And they'd say, hey, if you do that, you're probably going to die in like 3 months. And then I would be like, well, I'll accept that because I'm 89 and I'm like uncomfortable, like, you know, with my illness or current condition or whatever it is. That if you have more Americans essentially be able to take greater degrees of control over how they'd want to spend that period of time, that's actually one of the major cost drivers in our healthcare system.
That's just the numbers.
Yeah, this is just the numbers. Yeah. And again, in some cases, of course, you want to spend every penny and try and extend that person's life because that's what they want, and like there could be a very positive outcome. And in other cases, if the patient is both like saying like, hey, that's not what I want, and the outcome may not be like a return to perfect health, then we should be having different types of exchanges and conversations instead of just saying, well, the system says let's plug them in and like, you know, put them in like an intensive care that costs, you know, like $1,000 a day, and then pass that bill to the public because again, we all pay for it in our own ways. Like that, like these are not cost-free decisions.
Right.
And so if the patient says, you know, that they prefer a different course of action, like we should be able to, like, follow that patient's wishes.
Stuff that would be very difficult to talk on the debate stage, I imagine. It's a long.
Yeah, no.
Story.
I mean, you can imagine a caricature of that. It's like Yang wants, you know, like,
right, yeah.
you know, like.
I get it.
Yeah, you get it. You get it.
I've got basically. I'm going to do a call actually in 7 minutes with someone dialing in, but in that 7 minutes, I wanted to do this question because I think you have really powerful answers on this. Sylvia said on our website, she said, I'm a person with health conditions and I worry about the prices of medications that keep me alive, like so many other Americans.
Yeah.
What are the changes that you pledge to make in the prescription drug system, and how soon could you actually do this as president? But I think that might be, that's why the second question, how we get things done. We have a lot of answers there, but let's start with the first part of that. What would you pledge to change on prescription drugs?
If you need the drugs, you should be able to get the drugs that you need without fear of going broke. And it's very doable because we're spending so much more on prescription drugs than any other country. I've got a 4-phase plan to get drug prices under control. Number one is saying to these companies that you have to charge something within international standards because they often gouge us relative to what they charge other citizens in other countries, even though in many cases we subsidize the drug development. Yep. So number one is international standards. Number two is forced licensing if they don't adhere to those standards. Number three is public generic manufacturing facility. I mean, that's like such a club where it's like, oh my gosh, if they can just actually manufacture the drug.
Who's they? Like the drug company?
Well, if you're the drug company, you're like, oh snap! If I gouge customers, too bad. Like then
the government could manufacture it, a generic version very quickly.
And then number four is importation, because in some cases there are alternatives in other markets that we could import in to compete. So there are ways to get the drug prices down, but under my healthcare plan, you should not have to worry about the cost getting ratcheted up and up and up. Like if you need the drugs, you'll have them. When you changed, just out of curiosity, this happened to me. When I change insurance companies, I do the same prescription, but the price goes way up. And I'm even paying the same thing. It's just the actual cost of the exact same drug for out-of-pocket will change, and that's always the most infuriating thing in the world. Yeah. And you don't know until you've already bought the insurance. Well, I mean, like all the pricing we all know is totally opaque in healthcare. It's like, and the truth is they will charge very, very different rates for the exact same thing or drug or procedure for different people or in different areas or people in different plans. And the other thing is that there's like, even in expectations, they'll charge you some crazy amount, and then what they don't tell you is like they expect to only get a fraction of that, because they would never tell you that. I mean, we all know there's some crazy stuff. We all know that the healthcare pricing is completely out of whack. It has no relationship to actual cost or reality. It's just their ability to extract maximum rents from us.
I got 4 minutes. I want to talk. You talked about this on the. Oh, we're running a little late. Cool. It's actually more than that. So we got some time.
No.
Oh, you want to do now, or would you rather do later?
Let's do that.
Well, Pat, maybe we have a special guest.
Really? Who's that?
We're gonna find out. I can announce.
Yeah. Let's. It might be. You might see a glitch in the stream, everybody.
Okay, we might get Fritzy. But
Might get a glitch in the stream. It
David
sounds very
Arquette
Matrixy.
is joining us, who has been in a number of films, but my favorite is Ready to Rumble. I don't know if people have seen this movie. Probably
Ready to
not. It's a
Rumble.
cult classic.
Ready to Rumble is a very important American film
Yes.
for all of us who grew up wrestling fans, which includes yours truly. I guess most people knew that, right? That I grew up a wrestling fan.
I don't know if more supposed to. I mean, I'm assuming that members of the Yang Gang knew that.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the suburbs in the 80s, so, what did we do? We freaking did wrestling moves on each other, and WrestleMania 3, WrestleMania 4, such important.
So those of you who've never heard of or seen Ready to Rumble, it stars David and Scott King, that's just a Khan, and Oliver Platt, and it's about two guys that think.
David's been in a bunch of other stuff too.
He's been in a bunch of better movies.
But Ready to Rumble certainly is one thing I know him as. He was actually the pro wrestling champion in WCW.
David Arquette is?
He was.
Really?
He was like it was, he was like the visiting celebrity, and then they made him champion.
Oh, that's really cool. We got him on. Did we break it?
We broke it. No. He tried to dial in.
We're working that out.
We
Technical
went over,
difficulties.
But we're getting him in again.
Hey, what else is
Okay.
David in?
What else is David Arquette in? We're going to derail this conversation. He has been in Scream 3, Never Been Kissed.
Oh, of course,
Scream 2,
Scream.
Eight-Legged Freaks, great movie.
He was in the Scream franchise.
He was in the Scream franchise. He's the man.
He's a very good guy too. We met at one of our events.
I want his whole list. So what's our ETA, guys? If not, I'll just go to another question to keep the fans.
Yeah, go to another question, but we might have to cut you off.
That's
because
fine.
He tried last time and we didn't want to cut you off. So.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Here's so one thing I did want to ask about, as you talk about this in the debate stage, is the opioid crisis. And so Jack, who says he lives in a small town, Louisiana, said the opioid crisis is hitting very hard. And this question was, what would be your plan to get either companies or the government to pay for rehabilitation programs?
Oh, yeah.
How would you? And you had, I thought, a really great answer on the debate stage, and it was even more great for me because I've heard you get triggered on this a number of times since the early days. You've been really passionate about this.
Very passionate about it because it's such criminality. These drug companies have profited to the tune of tens of billions of dollars and killed tens of thousands of Americans. I mean, it's essentially blood money, and then we walk around being like, how are you going to pay for it? It's like, are you kidding? I mean, the government turns a blind eye when drug companies profit to the tune of tens of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
That's not just a private company failing, that's a government failing. This is a disease of capitalism run amok, is what I said.
That's the quote. It's
Yeah,
true.
No, it is. Clearly. I mean, they thought, hey, we can make lots of money off of Americans, and we'll pretend OxyContin is a non-addictive wonder drug, and it turns out it's a super addictive drug.
Yep.
And then you go from oxy to heroin and fentanyl, and that's what our friend in Louisiana.
Just talking about Jack.
Yeah, so Jack has seen the effects of this, and so if the government had turned a blind eye while this plague was getting originated, and the government has to say, look, we're going to try and make people whole, and the truth is there's nothing that we can do to make you whole because your family's been destroyed, your relatives are dying.
Community's been destroyed.
Yeah. So, but we're going to make it so that treatment, the cost of treatment is not an obstacle. And so we can claw back tens of billions of dollars from the drug companies, and I'm happy to say that it looks like Purdue Pharma is literally getting put out of business over this. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that.
Yeah, it's glorious. They made $30 billion, so there's a lot of money they claw back. And the really tough part about this is, as much money as the drug companies made, it is almost always harder and more expensive to rebuild than to destroy. You know, it's like if you had to so cost should not be an issue. If you're going to have this national emergency, which I believe the opiate epidemic is, then you have to claw back the money from the drug companies and then funnel it to communities in Louisiana and other places where essentially the rule should be like, if you're seeking treatment, then we will provide those pathways to you essentially at public cost. And well, this like, because it's not a cost issue most times, it's a human issue. Right, the other component of it is that we should decriminalize opiates for personal use, because it's not your fault that we let Purdue Pharma dispense more opiate prescriptions in the state of Ohio than there were human beings in the state of Ohio. That's a government failing. And so instead of throwing you in jail or your family members in jail, we should just refer you straight to counseling and treatment.
And this has worked, right?
Yeah, this is one reason. This isn't something that, I didn't. One thing I really like to do, I think the Yang Gang knows this, I like to see what worked someplace else and see if it would work here. And so Portugal had this massive drug problem, and then they decriminalized these drugs and saw a massive decrease in both overdoses and abuse rates. Mm-hmm. And they did the same thing I'm suggesting, which is they decriminalized personal use. I mean, if you're a dealer, then you go to jail. But if we nail you for having opiates and using opiates, then we take the opiates away and then we refer you straight to counseling and treatment. So this would be a very different approach to the problem in Louisiana and other places, but it's overdue. I mean, we have 8 Americans dying an hour of this opiate plague. I talked to EMTs in New Hampshire and other places in Nevada who say like they save the same addicts week after week, and that doesn't make any sense. That's also, frankly, like it's probably costing lives, because that EMT is dealing with an addict for the 3rd time in a month, and then there's someone else like who having a heart attack someplace else in the city. You know what I mean? Like so to me, we need a very different approach towards opiates. We have to try and make communities whole, give people a fighting chance, decriminalize its use, and then open safe injection, safe consumption sites around the country. I mean, there's like it's so much easier to become an addict than it is to get well. Yep. It's like when I looked at what the success rates were for rehab, it generally takes multiple tries. And unfortunately, when you hit rock bottom with opiates, there often is no second or third chance. Right. I mean, you just overdose. And there are so many people around the country who've had their lives and families and communities destroyed by that. Right. So the claw back the money, drug companies, but then even if there's more money to be spent, it's the government's fault that it has reached this level. Right.
Another question on healthcare. Someone wrote this in, but I think it's fascinating for you, is that healthcare in rural areas and what we can use technology to solve for. So the question I got from Mira says, I'm a primary care physician in a rural area in California, and I want to know your ideas.
Hats off to you, Mira. Is it
Mira,
right?
Mira, yeah.
Nira or Mira?
N is it Nancy?
Nira,
Y-R-A.
Nira, hats off to you, because primary care docs in rural areas are worth their weight in gold.
So she asked, I want to know what your ideas are about how we can leverage automation to improve care for patients, especially those who are underserved and have limited access to healthcare providers.
So Nira, hats off to you. And there's a multi-part problem. Yeah. So first I want to talk about why there aren't enough doctors in primary care in rural areas. Is there a shortage of human beings who'd want to be doctors? No. There are a lot of human beings who want to be doctors. But the AMA, the medical lobby, has artificially constrained the cost of, or the number of doctors that get educated every year. And And then when you go to them and say, okay, getting an MD costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then if you're a medical student, and so Neera, this is why Neera is such a hero, when you're racking up these $100,000 in debt, then you have a choice to make. You say, do I want to be a primary care doctor and see patients from the get-go, even though that's what I dreamed of as a kid, because everyone wants to be like that doctor who's like solving problems for the community? Or do I stay in school, specialize, and get paid a lot more money? And it's like, well, I owe a couple $100,000, so maybe I should become an anesthesiologist or a derm or at the very, very extreme end, an orthopedic surgeon, and then try and get paid. Literally, it might be something like, you know,
more.
5 to 10 times as much as the primary care doctor.
Yep.
You know, and so then you think, well, how about I do that? And then when you become the specialist, you're like, well, where am I going to go? Certainly not a rural area, because they don't need. Like I don't have as much of a market, and so why don't I just go to the affluent coastal city or whatever it is? So then you have the systematic undersupply of primary care doctors.
Yep.
And you have very, very massive financial incentives that make it so that no one wants to be a primary care doctor, and if they do, they certainly don't want to do it in a rural area. And then you artificially constrain the number of doctors every year. And then you have state-by-state licensing so that if a doctor wanted to beam in and treat someone in another state, they're prohibited from doing so. No, this is our system.
Sometimes it's some of the stuff's so dark that you just have to laugh. Like,
It's dark. It's dark.
Yeah.
So then you look at each of these problems in turn and say, okay, what can we solve for? So one very quick thing we could solve for is like, hey, guess what? You become a primary care doctor in a rural area, we'll pay for your med school loans. I mean, that one's like the easiest one. Harder, but doable. Another easy one, just open up the state licensing. Like, do we really think that practicing medicine in New Mexico is that different from practicing in Arizona? That I need like another freaking like certification to like cross that state line? It's like, how about if I want to practice telemedicine, you assume if I'm licensed in one place, I can probably like beam in and like talk to a patient in another state, and it's not like your symptoms are going to be that different across the state line. You know what I mean? So easy things, ease the financial burden on people who choose to be primary care doctors in rural areas.
Yep.
Easy thing, open up the licensing.
And you mean by that, like, you need, in order to practice medicine, you have to have a license in the state you are practicing, and there's not a lot of crossover.
So I talked to a telemedicine doctor, and he had to get additional licenses for every state just so he could beam in.
We talked to him in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he was the one that's like, guess what? They're all pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I needed to.
So you have to still take them. And
Yeah, it's up to take them, and so that restricts the ability of doctors to utilize telemedicine.
Right.
Okay, so third, and this is where it gets more. Third, hopefully try and increase the supply of doctors over time. Now that's very, very hard because you need actual new med schools and new institutions, and it's like that stuff takes some time. There's no silver bullet there. 4 is ease some of the licensing requirements, particularly in rural areas, to see patients. And this is something the medical lobby has fought, where you say, hey, no primary care doctors in that part of the country. How about have a nurse practitioner see patients? Then maybe refer to a doctor if, needed. And AMA is like, no, can't do that. Need a doctor. And say, guess what? Like, how about we loosen that up? Particularly because technology may make it so that nurse practitioner actually can become as accurate a diagnostician as an MD very easily, because they just have their freaking, AI, and it's just like, hey, like, this person's complaining of XYZ, like, here are like the 4 things it could be, based upon probabilities and like the demographics of the person involved.
How much better would that be talking to a person than getting your stuff from WebMD, man? Because I go on WebMD and I find out that I'm dying usually when I have a cold. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
Like anyway.
So the telemedicine, the prospects of helping people in rural America, you got to open up telemedicine to the extent possible. You have to open up licensing requirements, and then have different types of providers that are supplemented by technology.
Right.
I do think that healthcare is an area where technology can assist a great deal. It's just right now the financial incentives aren't there.
Right.
Because no one gets paid enough to service a rural area.
I've got one last question on healthcare, and then we'll shift gears. Also, David Arquette, technical difficulties, is breaking my heart at the moment. I think he has tough service. Is he coming?
Yeah.
Right now? We're hoping. Anyway, he'll get you eventually. Rachel Smith, a question just online, said, you support free marriage counseling and financial counseling for all. As someone who realizes healthcare needs to be more holistic and preventative, how do you feel about free nutrition counseling for all? And I guess, to take this based on the other questions is, you talk about healthcare that's not just like when you're sick, the basics of health. You talk about mental health. You talk about marriage counseling. You talk about financial mindset of scarcity. As president, how would you bake
food
that
and nutrition?
in?
Yeah,
food and nutrition. Yes, please. Even clean air and water and things like that. You talk about in some ways.
Yeah, so much of it to me is putting resource into people's hands so they can make real decisions. Because right now you have food deserts in this country. People can't get access to decent groceries, and they're just struggling to make ends meet. So then you just end up buying the
KFC.
KFC.
But
one of my boys loves McDonald's.
I grew up on McDonald's.
Yeah, me too. He loves it. He calls it Old McDonald.
Which one? The little one?
Yeah, the little one.
That's adorable.
Anytime he passes, he's like, "Can we go to Old McDonald?"
You sing the song?
No, he just says Old McDonald. And the McDonald's in question has a play area, so he just wants to go play there.
Right.
But it is incredible how cheap the food is.
Yeah, you feed the whole family for.
Where literally you can get McNuggets for $1, and I was like, $1? $1? It might be 4 McNuggets or something, but there's a $1 menu, and you can somehow get food items. So when you talk about health and nutrition, am I for nutritional guidance available to Americans free of charge? Yeah. The first step, though, is getting enough money into their hands where they can make genuine choices, where it's not all just hitting the dollar menu all the time. And then the market would follow suit, because if I'm a grocer, right now I'm not going to go where you don't have disposable income to buy my fresh fruits and vegetables. But if you have the money, then I'll try and sell you fruits and vegetables. Right. So, and this is something that actually Mark Cuban is very passionate about, where he says the big problem around American healthcare is food and nutrition. And that if you want to try and make people healthier, you would try and improve their diets, improve their...
It's not preventative in that sense, right?
It's... I guess you could argue it is preventative. I'd say, if you eat healthy, then you're probably preventing...
That's what Mark... Yeah. Right now we're not preventative.
Right now we're not preventative, at least. Yeah. And, people... So I'm very passionate about people getting the resources to be able to make better nutritional choices. Right. To me, this is so I think nutritional advice and financial counseling are similar in that they do not matter unless you actually have the resources to make those choices. Because, and I joke about this, it's impossible to teach someone financial literacy if they don't have any money. And I remember this when I was a young person learning about financial literacy. I did not care at all. I literally got an economics degree and still did, I was like, whatever. And then as soon as you actually have money, then you're like, time value what? What can I do? What? It's so what we have to do is, if you have a freedom dividend of $1,000 a month and you teach financial literacy in high school, the kids will freaking listen then, because they're like, I'm getting the money, I'm going to do something with it. And it's that's
more likely
real.
Listen, yeah.
Same thing on the food side. It's look, if we get you out of the position of scarcity, and then we teach you, because if you teach some person who's just struggling to make ends meet, it's hey, here's how you eat healthier, it'll just go right at, in one ear out the other. Right. It'll be whatever, and then they'll just bring their kids and can do the dollar menu. So if you give them real choices, and then you say, hey, you know what, you might want to do a little more balanced diet action, then they might listen.
Right.
I'll also say too that I ate so much crap as a kid that, because of that, I don't really care what my kids eat, because I just think that like this makes me a terrible parent. I don't know, but I think nutrition becomes much more important when you're and I know that like there are many Americans who are getting diabetes when they're very young and they're like child obesity problems. Like there's some real problems, and I do not want to make light of that. And I think nutritional school lunches are very important. They're a bunch of like it's like feeding our kids crap. But you guys just know on a personal level, I take my kid to McDonald's. Like on a personal level, it's like what's that you want X and Y? It's like because I remember as a kid, I would eat like whole bags of Doritos or chips or whatever, and just like not, what I mean? Just like it's like and it could have also been that I was like a bit of a garbage disposal when I was a kid. So I'm not like one of these people who's out there like trying to police everyone's diets, but I just want people to have like genuine
information.
Yeah,
you could feed your kids healthy if you prioritize it in a sense, right?
Well, part of the reason why I get to get away with just being like shrug and like like giving them nuggets and fries or whatever is that I know that there's a balance going on in my household because and the average day like with like the box lunches that get packed for the kids, they're like moderately healthful and whatnot. So if I like indulge them, so a lot of it's like there's like moderation. It's moderation in all things, I guess. Like I'm not some food.
Can't have McDonald's. I love McDonald's.
Yeah, I mean, I ate McDonald's so much as a kid. I ate like the things my as a kid, McDonald's and local Chinese food. I must have eaten local Chinese food all the time. There was this restaurant. It was literally, I think it was called like Hunan 9A because it was on Road 9A and they had like the least creative name ever. So it was just Hunan 9A, and then. And then whenever we didn't know what was going on for dinner, I'd be like Hunan 9A, and then they would like, then we'd bring it on in. My dad would pick it up on the way home.
What would you get?
I was like a chicken and cashew guy, or like a beef and broccoli.
I was a Genoa chicken guy all the time.
Oh yes.
Leave your message for 310.
What are we calling? Don't give the number out.
Yeah, we didn't.
We have other fun guests throughout.
We do have other guests, but I was really hoping for David. It's gonna happen. I feel positive. Well, we got in the vein of food. There's a guy named Matthew asked a whole bunch of fun questions, and I'll take a couple. We got a whole bunch of these. When you on the trail, we can do kind of rapid fire.
Actually, I didn't go through some of my food arc. All right, so as a kid, I ate crap, and then there was a period in my 20s where I was like a gym rat. And I would just eat like protein shakes and yogurt. I had like one of those giant vats of like chocolate protein on my fridge.
The whey protein stuff.
Yeah, and anytime I was hungry, I would be like, protein shake. And
Did you do water or milk?
I'd water that thing.
Water.
I had a palate at the time that, it's like I could eat like, you remember those original Power Bars that were not very tasty?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would eat those, just like protein shake it, and just like hang out. So that was me in my 20s. Was that healthy? Probably not very.
You're working
healthy,
out.
It was like it was, but it was Spartan. It was like austere.
Okay.
A little bit lazy too. A little bit lazy.
Really?
Well, yeah, it's like you don't have to do much energy to like freaking dump some chocolate protein.
Got it.
That's true. It's like, it's like.
Yeah.
So just describing like the food arc, and so that was like the 20s, and then I met Ellen when I was 31, and then she likes food, so we just started eating food, and then you have kids, and when you have kids, any parent knows this too. There's just so much kid food crap around all the time.
You're just snacking.
Yeah, and the kid like 7 times out of 10. Like doesn't finish their food, and then you're like, well, I'm not gonna let that go to waste, and so you just sit there. Like, kids are not great for your diet. Let's put it that way.
We're gonna call a supporter in a second, but one more question. My favorite. There's a lot of fans know you have boba. You love boba tea.
I do love me some boba tea.
Favorite flavor? That's from Matthew online.
I go almond tea, 30% sugar with red beans at the bottom if I'm feeling it. I prefer red beans at the bottom to like the boba.
The red beans over the bubbles?
Yeah, I don't do red
You're
beans
not a
and
big
bubbles.
bubble.
I just do red beans instead of bubbles.
You have turned me on to, or introduced me to these teas. They're pretty good.
Look at this.
Not
Look at
bad.
this. Expanding Zach's
You have expanded.
culinary and cultural horizons.
I've learned a lot of things.
One
on
more
this show.
consumer for the
Boba
boba
tea
tea market.
Okay.
One American at a time. We're gonna convert everyone to boba tea.
All right, we're gonna call a supporter who's playing it down in. This is Zachary. Where's Zachary based? TBD.
Hang on 2 seconds. Zachary is in South Carolina.
Ooh, nice. All right,
Does Zachary know we're calling?
we're gonna find out.
He donated, so maybe he was
A
there.
lot of
Oh,
people
we're just
donated
calling people
today.
who donated.
Who donated today?
Today.
Oh, I love that. What's Zachary's last name?
So if you donate today, we may call
Oh,
you.
actually, maybe I don't say. Zachary in South Carolina.
Come on, Zachary.
Can you see us calling you, Zachary? Are you watching us right now? And then your phone rings. It's like the Matrix.
That is like. I watched that movie recently. It's still good.
Are
Are we leaving him a voicemail? I'd love to
Do
leave him a
you,
voicemail.
do you know they're
Unless
making
his
a Matrix
numbers come
4?
out.
You know they're making a Matrix 4 with Keanu
Your call has
and
been
everyone?
forwarded to an
Should I leave a
automated
voicemail?
voice
I'll leave a
messaging
voicemail.
system.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Hold
don't
his
worry.
number.
Don't worry. I made it so you can't hear the number, and now it's back.
0, 2,
Smart.
That's the
3,
kind of.
2, 8.
Oh, you're good.
Fine, they only
At the
get
tone, please
Well, I mean, you
record
know
your
the whole
No,
number.
yeah,
so
I
you get the
yeah.
last
Okay,
digits.
yeah.
Like,
All right,
message.
I was
sorry.
trying to be smart.
Press 1 for more options.
Here.
Hi, Zachary. This is Andrew Yang calling you to say thank you for your support for me and the campaign. It means so much to us. I'm sorry you weren't there to pick up, but you're here in spirit, very much with us. And this call is actually being broadcast to any number of people. So hopefully we'll have a chance to meet soon. I will be in South Carolina on the trail before long. Thank you, Zachary. Thank you. Or we're going to call someone else.
Angela. Angela, it is your lucky or unlucky day, depending on how you want to frame that. What is that? 765. Just kidding. Angela from Indiana.
Yeah, that's right. This is a little fun segment.
Right.
In this segment called Andrew Calls You.
Just as an announcement, public service announcement, if you're donating and you get a random phone call,
Answer.
please pick
the
up.
thing is, like, I
And
get
please
it,
donate.
'cause,
That'd be
like,
great, too.
I don't pick up any number I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't pick up any number I don't know.
I don't
Any
either.
number.
I don't
So I
either.
get it. Angela, Zachary, I get it.
It's cool, Angela. Do you want to leave a voicemail?
Sure, why not? We'll just keep on doing
At
it.
least you'll get a voicemail from us if you don't pick up.
Hey Angela, it's Andrew Yang calling to say thank you so much for your generosity and support. It means the world to us. You're the reason why we're gonna win. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to talk to you in person. Hopefully I'll see you on the trail soon. And thank you. And keep up the writing.
All right. We're gonna not do phone calls anymore.
We're gonna get some
Maybe
more
they'll call
Third
back.
time is the charm.
Keep.
We're doing one more?
Keep donating.
Keep donating. We're gonna keep trying.
You know, I just want to return to one earlier point just from. Oh,
Go
but let's
for it.
call someone else. Which is that, so if you think about all of the young people who want to help other people, but then aren't really good at like the MCAT or whatever, which is like the vast
Very
majority of
hard.
humans. I mean, we can introduce so many people into roles that would enable them to make communities stronger and healthier. Right now, we're just artificially constraining what that group of people looks like because we've set up very, very elaborate hoops that might have served a very important purpose at one point in time, but now are not making us healthier. And I vividly remember many people I went to college with who originally wanted to be doctors, who got weeded out of the pre-med track, that would have made excellent doctors or primary care providers or people that just make communities stronger.
Right.
So many. And to me, I remember vividly, there was like a classmate of mine who did poorly on an organic chemistry test, which was like the weed out class for pre-med, and I remember her crying and like seeing that her like dream of being a doctor was slipping away, and just thinking, well, this like seems completely unnecessary in the sense that she's awesome, and if she wants to be able to help people, like there should be a means for her to do so that doesn't involve being awesome in organic chemistry, which like what does the organic chemistry test have to do with her being able to see patients in a rural area?
I don't know enough about being a doctor and know how much organic chemistry is involved with delivering primary care.
Well, so organic chemistry, it's like how many doctors utilize the organic chemistry substantive material, in a semi-regular basis? Like very, very few, virtually none. I mean, what we've done is we've set up a system where you just need to have certain academic abilities to like get access to certain opportunities, which again might have played a very important role at a particular point in time, but like now you're looking at it being like, if you were a citizen in a rural area, like would you have wanted my friend to be able to see you and make you healthier? It's like yeah, like you would, and it's like that's not a
I'll do one more fun one, and then we've got like 15-ish, maybe more minute. This is from Rebecca online. Who was your favorite WWE pro wrestler?
Lifetime, it was Randy Macho Man Savage, very, very easily. But he passed, which I can't believe. It's so sad.
That is sad.
Yeah.
I wasn't even one of my best friends like growing up was a huge WWE fan, so I always lived vicariously through Jeff. Yeah, that's the extent of my knowledge.
Yeah, more modern era. I mean, I was a big rock fan. How can you not be a rock fan?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, even rock at this point might not be modern era. So if you had to go like current day, who am I a big fan of? Like Chris Jericho. Freaking love Jericho. Jericho-holics.
He's Yang Gang, right?
Yeah, no, he is. I'm a big AEW guy now because I just think that it's good for talent to have creative ownership and financial ownership in some way. Not that every wrestler at AEW does, but at least some of like the key players do. You
got someone on the phone?
Yeah, and anyway.
Who is it? Oh, it's David.
Hey, David, you're on the air with me and Zach.
Hey, David.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Hey, thank you. Sorry, I'm technically sort of not advanced enough from the cabinet, and I couldn't get back to the meeting.
It wasn't you, man. I'm sure it was just technology. Technology is gonna be the death of us.
I know. I read your book, and whoever's listening, you have to read his book. It's incredible.
Oh, thank you, man. It means a lot.
Eye opener for sure. And I was really struck by your exchange with Elizabeth Warren on the debates, and that she sort of didn't seem so aware of this technological sort of, the fourth industrial revolution coming up, and that was pretty shocking, So my question for you would be, right now I'm actually at the downtown women's shelter. I work here a lot in the kitchen, and I help ladies down here. It's right on Skid Row. And I was really interested in your sort of parallel financial system you broke down that would go off people's time and sort of because it was interesting. My friend is a really successful guy, and he mentioned human capital once, and I was well, what's that? And he said, well, that's how much an individual person costs the company, and it's sort of a corporation's goal to eliminate human capital. And I was like, you should eliminate workers. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, kind of. That's what you try to do is get your costs down. So then you turned it into human capitalism. So I'm really interested to hear about that.
Thank you, David, and congratulations for helping out at the shelter, man. I mean, that's extraordinarily humanizing and empathetic work. That's awesome.
Thank you. It's a great place.
Yeah, I'm sure they appreciate having you there. I was a little surprised also that Senator Warren didn't seem as keen on this set of issues. I'd read some of her materials, and I knew that she wasn't as concerned about automation as I believe she should have been. It's one reason why during the debate you probably saw that I tried to hammer home the point. It's like, look, this is like not something you can regulate easily away. This is something very fundamental about our economy. And so the human-centered capitalism that you were describing is that, to me, we need to have the measurements of our economy not be this gross domestic product measurement, but instead our own health and well-being, like the women or the people you're seeing in the shelter. It's like, how are they doing? Before we came up with GDP, the way we measured our economy was we would do things like count the kids in the poorhouse, or count the vagrants outside, or like you'd actually do like counts of people in various states of distress and say like, oh, more people at the poorhouse, that's not good, or like more people. And then we did away with those measurements because we had this GDP number. But if you can imagine going back to basics and saying, like, are our people stronger and healthier? Are our people struggling with substance abuse? Are our kids doing better? Like, are we able to pay our bills? And then if you had someone who helped us get stronger in one of those dimensions, then you could reward them in various ways. And one of the ideas I had in the book, which is based upon something called time banking that's happening in hundreds of communities around the country, is that everyone's time has value, everyone's time deserves some sort of recognition, so that if you help your neighbor in some of these communities around the country, then you earn like a time dollar, or like essentially an hour of time that you can then pass to someone else in the community. And so then you end up having people trading like a home-cooked meal for babysitting, for a ride to the airport, for repairing a boiler, for staffing a garage sale, and you wind up creating all of these new social activities and contributions that have value. It makes everyone feel like, okay, I have something to contribute, which everyone does, and then in the aggregate, it ends up serving our individual and collective well-being by the measurements. Mm-hmm. And so that it seems a little bit idealistic, but it's based on a system that's been working effectively in hundreds of communities around the country, and it's stuff that we naturally want to do. I mean, who wouldn't want to have like a neighbor do something to help us and then us help a neighbor? I mean, most people wish that's the way we lived, but today, we're more and more isolated. We're more and more reluctant to trust others. And so if we can introduce a means of measuring how we're doing and then encouraging people to do things that help us, it could be a really positive game changer.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, we do a lot of work in the criminal justice reform space, and there's a 4th grade test that they give to people, and then depending on that, they decide how many prisons they're going to build. Because if you can't read at that age, they write you off instead of trying to fix it. So I really appreciate you trying to change our minds and change our way of life. I encourage everyone to read that book, because it really is an eye-opener on so many different topics.
Well, thank you, David. That's an incredible story. Like Zach just had
my
this,
jaw kind of dropped there. Holy
yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. It's so sad. That's but America's a great country, and we just really need to dive back into our hearts and care for our neighbors, and take a different approach, because it's obviously broken at this point.
Well, David, you're in a particular vantage point where you can see things that others can't, and it's one of the things that I feel has to be part of this campaign, is that so many Americans have their heads down. It's like you're just trying to like make it through the day and make ends meet. And then if you have like enough of a vantage point, you can say like, look, we actually can do better than this. We don't necessarily need to live like this. Like, we can solve some of these problems. But it's going to take people like you who can see it to help spread the vision. So, super grateful to you.
I'm grateful to you too. Thanks for what you're doing, and love to your family and your campaign there.
Thank you, brother.
David.
That's awesome. Well, we'll be out west again before long, so we'll have some more fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, David. We're huge fans of you as a person and a professional. So thank you.
Thank you.
David Arquette,
joining live. Thank you. So
we're gonna call.
We
some
are
more
still
folks.
a couple things, guys. So we are that was David Arquette, the legendary actor. And I don't fanboy that off. We've got to meet some pretty cool people on the trail. When I saw him the first time I fanboyed, I was like, that's so freaking cool. So a couple things, if you donate while we're on, we're going to call you. We're going to call somebody.
So should I just go click?
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing? You're just clicking?
It looks that
We're
way.
literally calling you right now. So donate and pick up. That's two things you got to do.
Who is this?
Ethan.
Let's give it a shot.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, Ethan. This is Andrew Yang with Zach Grauman. We are calling to say thank you.
Well, thanks for calling me. I'm a big fan.
That's awesome. So just know that this call is being live streamed, and you can probably see it. Then you know.
I was listening to the stream just now.
Well, that's fun. You can speak to yourself as well as thousands of others, Ethan. Where are we reaching you?
I'm in Richmond, Virginia.
That's great, man. We're gonna be in your neck of the woods in actually just a few days.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hope I can come out to that.
Yeah, I don't think we're having a big rally or anything. I'm going to the National Press Club. Is that what I'm doing?
We're doing DC, and then I'm actually trying to do a rally nearby, but we're working on that. Rallies are a lot of work. We love doing them, but they're not. You can't just poof.
What's that? Rallies are a lot of fun, Zach. What's
They're
that?
a lot of work. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, sure.
They're a lot of fun, but they're
That's what boils down to the candidate of the campaign. I'm just like, let's have a rally, and then there are people being like, that's gonna be a lot of work, and I'm like, what do you mean? I just show up and throw some.
The whole staff goes.
Throw some bombs and So, Ethan, how did you find out about the campaign and what got you excited?
Well, I first heard you on Joe Rogan's podcast, and just like what you had to say. You sounded very intelligent, data-driven candidate, and I've been following you ever since.
Well, it must be fun to see the Yang Gang grow since then, right? Because it's been a very big 8
Well,
months.
it has, yeah.
Hey, Ethan.
Especially like the other night on the debate, you just killed it. You were probably you won in my view.
Thank you so much, man. That means a lot. We all won just by the fact that there was an entire freaking arc on automation and UBI and the rest of it.
Oh yeah.
And being on that stage watching it unfold, I was like Zach joked afterwards where he was like, they served you up like a steak dinner, and then you were like,
you better eat.
And then that was my feeling on stage. I was like, I better eat because this is the most savory meal I'm gonna get. Having been to a number of those debates where ordinarily it's like, Mr. Yang, what do you think about China tariffs or whatever? And it's like, and then my running joke was like, well, because of my non-existent degree in East Asian Studies. I thought that debate was great too, and I give CNN a lot of credit for being substantive in areas that we could sink our teeth into.
Yeah. Hey Ethan, it's Zach. Did you we got to bring you on here. Is there anything you want to ask Andrew?
Oh yeah, ask whatever you want, man. We got the
We're on the Ask Andrew show. What do you got, man?
I don't know. Maybe if he could possibly swing by Richmond, that would be great. I know.
Come over, man.
Get that in there.
I like it.
Yeah.
That I can do. We can try that.
I think we're working on it.
We actually are. It's been fun, guys, building for you, Ethan, for everybody watching. It's been fun building. I was joking with our campaign chief, Nick. It was been fun building this plane while flying, right? As you can imagine, going from a small number of employees to literally hundreds.
It's so wild. Like anytime
wild.
I go on the road and then I come back and then there are new people in the office, and you know, and like super grateful because they're like, oh, you're here to work on like my campaign, fantastic. Like, or it's like, then you leap out again, you come back and be like, oh, more new people.
Yeah. So yeah, you can say that with now that we're building these teams that can actually deploy advanced teams and build rallies and things like that. So short answer is we'd love to, Ethan.
Yeah, we'd be happy to have you.
All right.
We'll definitely be out there and bring some people, but I don't really have a lot of questions because I just have a lot of faith in y'all.
Oh, thank you, Ethan.
A lot of belief. Yeah.
That means so much. Ethan, not a plant. No, I'm kidding.
Not a plant. A donor, but not a plant.
Ethan's actually sitting in the room next to us. And then his questions will be like, how do you come up with such awesome ideas? I'm like, well, thank you, Ethan. I'm just kidding. All right. Well, fantastic, Ethan. We will see you on the road in Richmond, but appreciate your support so much and all the growth you've seen from February to now. We're about to compound it in the days ahead, but couldn't have gotten here without you. So appreciate the heck out of you.
Yeah, keep it up, man.
Thank you, sir.
I will. Thanks, Ethan.
Later. This is fun. It's like, that's more fun than sometimes talking about how broken our healthcare system is.
Yeah, no, significantly more fun.
Not always important, but it depends how you define important.
Yeah, want to try one more random call?
Ooh, so fun.
Yeah, why not? Let's do another one.
So it's funny, like I've called supporters before. I've called non-supporters.
You phone banked.
I phone banked. We have like a video. So that was actually from a supporter call where they said, hey, you should phone bank and then record it. So we did that. So that'll probably come out tomorrow.
It only took you 14 calls to get somebody, I think.
This is Alyssa. Let's see if she answers.
Alyssa.
Where's Alyssa?
Alyssa is in Santa Monica.
That's fun.
California. Big state.
I wonder if Alyssa's watching. Alyssa's watching.
Hope you're watching, Alyssa, because we're calling you.
It could go either way, it sounds like.
Sounds like
My friends are texting me asking if they would give them a phone call. Which we're not going to do. They're not cool
That's
enough.
funny.
I mean, if they answer now.
Oh, seriously, I should have some of my friends donate right now and be like, hey.
Hi, you've
I'll leave a
reached
voicemail.
message. Please leave me a message after the beep, and I'll get back to you.
Okay, I'll do this thing.
Thanks.
Just make sure you don't say the number.
Sure.
At the tone, please record your message.
Oh,
When
it's
you've
okay.
finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hey, Alyssa, it's Andrew Yang. I'm here with Zach.
Hey.
I just want to call. We just wanted to call to say thank you for your incredible support and faith and confidence in me and the campaign. It means a ton to us. Hopefully, we'll see you out west when we're out there next. But thank you for being part of the Yang Gang. You're the best. And we will continue to work our hearts out to make you proud in the days to come. Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you, Alyssa. How are we on time? It's 3:43. We can keep going.
How are we on topics?
We didn't touch education, so we'll get there eventually. This is actually going to be... You don't have filler, so when you talk, you actually have substance and you start going, so it's a good thing. A couple things. I'm getting like play-by-play, which is very fun.
It's fun.
A couple things. Halloween merch on the store right now.
That's fun.
I think I've seen some of this. It's pretty cool. Now here's a Halloween question that I got. I want to give this person credit for it. Where'd it go? Okay, here it is. From this guy's a different guy. Matthew asked you, "Are you actually into?" So there's a bit of background. There was a picture of Andrew Yang as a punk rocker with a Dead Kennedys T-shirt.
Yeah.
From you were in your late 20s, like for Halloween.
Early 30s.
Early 30s. Are you actually into the Dead Kennedys, or was it just a costume?
I'm an admirer of the Dead Kennedys, but I wasn't really that into them. They're a little bit before my time.
Okay.
I mean, the stuff like right after them, like I like the Pixies, yes. But the Dead Kennedys themselves were a little bit before my time. Iconic though. Yeah, Halloween's been a huge holiday in my family for, well, one, I just loved Halloween growing up, and anyone who's like seen the pics can like see that I've been like celebrating in various ways. Some of my like dumber costumes actually don't have pictured.
You've sent some out on Twitter.
I sent some out on Twitter.
What's your favorite? Like, what's the favorite one you've done with the fam?
The fam. In that range. So then, okay, so here's the thing. Like, it turns out that now two of my, one of my children's born on Halloween, so now it's like a very special holiday.
Yeah.
And it's Evelyn's birthday too. So I mean, it's like the biggest holiday there is in the family. And I loved it anyway. So now it's like the biggest freaking holiday in the world.
Andrew doesn't ask for days off on the campaign very often, and he's like, Zach.
Yeah, Halloween because it's like literally, it's like
no, we're not campaigning.
It's literally like both.
Okay,
it's
man.
Like literally,
I guess
half my family's birthday. It's like that day.
All right.
Plus like bring the kids trick or treating. Happily, like the campaign was like the.
I don't think we
nation would probably rather
Halloween.
you spend time with your family anyway.
Okay.
But so you said favorite costume. I had some really. So there's one costume. This is gonna like bring out the sci-fi geek. Like I was Riddick from the Chronicles of Riddick one year.
Do people like that movie?
And no one recognized me at all because no one saw that movie.
No one watched that movie.
So literally, like the
feedback I
got on that, it was Vin Diesel. the feedback I got in that costume was why does a swimmer need a knife? Because I had on like a bald cap for like Vin Diesel and goggles because that's what Riddick looks like. And so people would be like, "Why does the swimmer need a knife?" and then I was like, "Absolutely, no one saw this movie." And I just looked like a bizarre swimmer. I mean, it was whenever the hell Chronicles of Riddick came out.
That was 2000. That was early 2000s. That was like 2001, 2002.
I might have been 26, 27 then because I was born in 75. So it's like late 20s. I had on.
This is important enough.
It's important enough to get the chronology correct.
And I also want to know its Rotten Tomatoes score. So this movie came out in 2000. Oh, sorry, 2004. What did I say? 2002?
Yeah, you said 2002. Okay. That's fine close.
2004, and it has a 29% on Rotten Tomatoes.
But
91% of Google users like this movie. So the people who look it up tend to give it a thumbs up on Google.
So I think it was that year. So it was like 29.
Wow.
So yeah, the people were like, "Why does the swimmer need a knife?" And then I was like, "Forget it." So there was that. What other costumes? I was a pirate one
Audience
time.
gave it 65% though. There's something there.
Yeah, I liked it. Obviously, I mean, I guess if you.
So this was what you were going for. I was trying to pull up a picture. Forget it. There we go.
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
This is it. This is what you were going for. You can kind of see that.
Yeah.
It's god awful.
So I didn't invest in like silver contacts or anything, but I did invest in black goggles.
For those of you who follow Andrew Yang, this is what I deal with pretty consistently on the road. Okay. I got this one, which is hilarious, from Twitter. Andrew, his name is Andrew. Great name. If you get elected, will you tell us if aliens are real?
I will, unless it's just so scary that I think that the nation would be ill-served.
Like public panic kind of thing?
Yeah, it's like if it's anywhere close to the line, I would err towards transparency because why not?
Right.
I mean, we should know. But if it's literally just like horrifying, then I guess I would go with the like party line of being like, hey, everything's all right.
This feels like something Donald Trump would talk about if he knew about it.
I guess that's one virtue of having Donald Trump is that we all know he doesn't have the restraint to actually keep a secret. So if he knew something,
right? Like he knew,
he'd be like, "You think I'm bad? What about the
Area 51?
Yeah, what about the alien squids?" And then we'd be like, "What?"
That's fair.
So I guess we should be reassured. They must not be alien squids.
All right, Jen on Twitter says, and we probably should take a break relatively soon, but these are fun. Jen on Twitter said, better Halloween candy, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, or fun size M&Ms. What are fun size M&Ms? That's
a smaller bag.
It's the smaller bag. Okay.
I would say fun size M&Ms if they're peanut. So the ranking goes peanut, fun size M&Ms, peanut butter cups, and then regular M&Ms.
What's your favorite candy for Halloween?
The fun size Kit Kats I like.
Yeah.
I also like those little like Mr. Good bars, like I think it's like a Hershey's assortment.
Oh, those are the little ones, like the ones with like the mixed bag.
Yeah, there's like freaking
bag.
Old school. It's like you got the Mr. Good bars in yellow, the crackles, in
Crackles,
red, and then the normal ones which aren't great, and then the special dark, which I like obviously because I'm like a dark chocolate guy.
Okay, we've been asked this. I'm gonna keep plugging this. When do we get to see Andrew Yang play Ted Cruz in basketball? This is from Bowen online.
Hey Bowen, we're still trying to find a date. Ted Cruz's team has not been super eager to produce said date. I think it may be because they've realized that this game will not serve Ted very well. But we're after it. I personally am pumped for the game. We don't have any reason to think it will not take place, but Ted's team has not been super forthcoming on a date. Our schedule is busy, but it's not so busy that I would like not carve out like an afternoon because we get a lot of press and attention for that game with Ted, and so it's like a fine use of a campaign day. So let's just say that our team and my willingness is not a holdup, and that to the extent there is a holdup, it is Ted Cruz's team dragging its feet. So Ted Cruz's team, if you're watching this, I believe your precise words were "bring it," and I am very happy to bring it. So let's get this thing on.
Well said. Well said. So on that note, a couple things before we wrap and take a little breather. We're going to be taking questions all the way till 8 p.m. Eastern time, so keep submitting. If you donate, we're going to call you, or we're going to try to call you, some of you, and it'll be a blast. If you're buying merch, that counts as a donation. Halloween merch, up on the store.
I'm going to tell a true story.
Go for it.
Which is in the early days of the campaign, I would literally try and call every donor.
Yes.
Because there were not that many donors, and so I would either email or call. And if you were like one of the first donors to the campaign, hopefully you remember this. And even then, people would be like, "Hey, is this really you?" And then I'd be like, "Sure." And in that case, I was like, because there are only 10 of you, so I emailed or called each of you. And this is like one of the startup principles, is that early adopters are worth their weight in gold. And you will not grow unless you treat them thus. And so that's what I try to do in the early days, like either an email or call, thank you. And so I miss those days in some ways because I wish I could thank everyone personally. But now we have literally over 300,000 donors, which I appreciate the heck out of.
Oh, cool.
So I wish that I could call every single person. So let's put it this way: you're getting you're getting like the heartfelt gratitude and vibes, even if like it's physically impossible to call every single person, but I definitely feel it. It's incredible how much we've grown, and I have to say too, I feel the love just walking around now. It's like I was on my bike the other day, and a fireman started just yelling like, "I love you, man!" Like, well,
fireman?
Yeah, fireman. I was like really appreciative.
It is cool now where we actually can't go in public without getting either asked for a selfie or just shout. People just scream "Yang Gang" at you. They don't even say it. Sometimes they don't even want to say hi. They're like "Yang Gang," which is kind of fun.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying like, "Hey, support you." Like,
people are just nice too.
Evelyn does like say it's like, "I can't bring you anywhere."
That's true.
Because I'm a very annoying figure to be around.
You're extremely annoying. We tried to get lunch at Pret the other day.
Yeah, it was not very successful.
Okay.
I was talking about like my brother-in-law is celebrating his birthday this weekend, and I was like, "Hey, should I come by?" And he was like, "I don't know if it's a good idea.
Please don't
come by.
Please don't come to my party.
It's gonna become like, it's gonna end up like I don't know, like dominating the gathering.
Oh yeah, my nonprofit was having a gala. And they're like, "Hey, you gonna bring Andrew?" I'm like, "Absolutely not. It'd be a disaster. I
definitely don't want to steal the thunder of freaking Sudan. That's for sure. I guess
but I get that's like it's part of the game, right?
It's so I want to say this very very honestly. It's like I don't. People sometimes ask. It's like oh da 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 da. It's like I don't really. Take it that much. I mean, I appreciate it.
It's okay to say Yang Gang.
I appreciate the heck out of it, but I don't take it that much to. I don't think it's really that much about me. It's like I feel like I'm just serving a purpose, and that people sense that I'm serving a purpose, and then they say it's then they see the purpose and they like it, see the vision. So I appreciate it, but it's not and this is a very specific time in certainly in my life. I mean, I'm just going to kick as much ass as humanly possible, up through the election. I believe we can win. If we don't win, I'd still be able to sleep at night because, we put it all out there and
right.
fought and said hey, we're going to do all we can for our country and our families, and in my case too, it's my own values and sense of self.
Yeah. You've said this. You've said this before. You're we're having fun. We actually do have a good amount of fun on the trail, but neither of us really want to be doing this, right? If the country was strong and whole, we wouldn't have to do this.
I would be much
rather
happier
if
the
rather
country
be
was just kicking ass and we were doing something.
Start a crypto fund or I don't know, something weird. Something different.
Podcast.
A podcast. Apparently,
Live
this is going great.
I also do want to say too, and this is I'm going to regret this at some point in my life probably, but because I have many friends who are media figures or podcasters, and it's very important putting yourself and your values and your thoughts out there. Right. But there is part of me that is if I wind up having that as my primary thing, I feel there will be something that's lost. I'm not, I feel myself to be more of a doer, builder than talker, I
Interesting.
suppose.
You'd rather build a...
Yeah, and not, again, I mean, obviously, a lot goes into, building a media platform or audience. But, so this, again, is famous last words. But I think at the very extreme end, if you wind up serving clicks or serving, there are a few people that it seems to me almost transcended it, where they can just be themselves and then magic happens and whatnot. I don't know. It's I think it's hard though, because you end up with very specific incentives around viewership and.
Oh, to be a media personality, what you're saying?
Yeah, it's the.
You want to do a Yang network?
Well, I mean, I want to. Yeah, I mean, I want to solve the problems and get things done.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't want to primarily be a talking head. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, I never. You have to have a certain level of confidence and unflappable determination to run for president. But you never really struck me as someone that you're definitely not doing this for the ego, in many ways.
I hope that comes across.
I hope so too. And it's one of our goals. That's why we're doing something like this too. Because
it's
10 hours is a lot. I'm having fun.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess it's if someone, because it is true. I mean, I think about it's so as someone who's running for president, you kind of assume that people see you the same way you see yourself, which obviously doesn't make any sense. But you do. It's just human nature. It's kind of dumb. It's well, of course people know that I'm this or that, or this kind of person.
Right.
Yeah. And it's strange sometimes when someone will take something and be oh, Andrew hates this, or Andrew loves that, or Andrew believes this, and it's I don't know where you got that. Yeah, but yeah. So hopefully this is productive and you guys are enjoying it. You know.
What's that?
Call and then head to Cora.
Are we calling someone else?
Alyssa called back.
Yeah, looks like Alyssa called us back, so let's do it.
So if you call us back, we'll do it.
Yeah, if we call you, you call us back. I mean, you gotta do it.
So she answered this back.
Is that what you were signaling us on before?
Sure.
Hello?
Hey, Alyssa, it's Andrew. Here with Zach.
Hey, Alyssa.
Holy shit, hi guys.
Hey, so FYI, you're on a live stream, and so.
Oh.
No,
Sorry.
you can swear. I'll make you
Yeah,
feel
we've
better.
already done
like
that.
you know,
You're
shit.
good.
Don't worry about it. But just letting you know for general purposes that you're on a live stream.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
No, so thank you so much for the support. I appreciate the heck out of it. I know Zach does too, and the entire team. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome. Are you kidding me? You give me so much hope for the future.
So
You are a
glad.
complete breath of fresh air when it comes to American politics. So, not at all.
That's so kind. So this is the Ask Andrew Anything, and so ask us whatever you'd like. And I'm going to feel a lot of pressure to respond because you're
Everybody's watching.
Yeah, because there are all these people watching right now. So yeah, feel free. Anything on your mind?
Okay, well, I actually sent in, it's kind of a generic question, but I figured it's going to be asked at some point. When you become president, what are your priorities for the first 100 days?
What are your priorities first 100 days when you are president?
So to me, that's a combination of like the low-hanging fruit and then like the big vision. The way I operate is that you try and focus on the big vision first and foremost. So everyone knows that after I win, it will be because of the freedom dividend. And I feel like America is going to say like, hey, let's make the dividend happen. And you have a limited number of things you can get done as president in like a particular period of time. So my energies would be very much focused on the dividend and trying to get the dividend across the finish line within the first 100 days and start getting things getting checks and transfers out to people. And the thing I love about the dividend so much is that as soon as it goes out, then people will immediately feel the benefits and see what's happening in their communities and their neighbors. And then there's like no turning back. And so that would be the priority. The very much secondary priority would be like, hey, if there are quick things we can do through just executive orders and actions that improve people's lives quickly, then we could do that too. And one of the great things is going to be the team building for the administration, is that there'd be all of these folks who are able to seek out those easy opportunities to try and frankly reverse some of the damage that's being done right now. The current administration, where they've taken real extremes in many viewpoints that if you just quickly reverse them, you could do a lot of good. But first and foremost is the dividend. And one of the things, Alyssa, I want to do is that after I win, my first visit is going to be to the district that voted for me the least, and show up and say, look, I get it, you didn't vote for me, most of you, but I'm your president too, and I just want to solve the problems and bring people together, and then get people excited about the fact that this dividend would be the game changer that many of us have been waiting for. And I believe the dividend would make other changes more possible and more realistic. But if there's one thing we can do that would improve people's lives most quickly and dramatically, it's the dividend.
Oh, definitely.
I love that you always say that. I want to go to the district that voted me the least. Goals to unite the country.
Well, yeah. I wonder what the guesses would be for the places that vote for me the least. I looked at the numbers once to see who would be the most likely for me to visit, and I think it was like a tie between Mississippi and like one other place. It would be like the place that's probably gonna have like the
most Trump supporters for sure.
Yeah, and so I'd end up visiting. But it's cool. I'd love it.
Yeah.
Because I've been all over the country, and Americans are really solid people if you just go up to them and like meet with them and hang out with them. Like everyone wants to do the right thing, like in that context that I found.
Right.
Like, it's one problem with the internet and our technology. This pioneer of the internet, Jaron Lanier, said that negative emotions and ideas and sentiments spread more powerfully on the internet than positive ones. And I think he's right. And then when you go in person, then all of a sudden, like all of the divisions seem like really insignificant. But then online, they seem really significant.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can drive that point home to Americans very early in my administration.
Alyssa, we're gonna let you go. We actually have to.
Okay.
I'm told we gotta.
Thank
move
you,
things
Alyssa.
along.
You're the best. I'm so
Thank
glad you called us back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Andrew. Your innovative thinking is definitely going to move us all forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Keep writing, and hopefully you'll see you out west.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, Alyssa. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, Zach. Bye.
Man, it's so wholesome. Like talking to the Yang Gang.
Yeah, the Yang
always
Gang's
makes me
great.
So happy. I see them like when we go on the trail. It's probably it's the highlight, when they say this. I had
I
someone
love
say
the
this
Yang Gang.
campaign. I see it all the time. It's actually like many people have said to me, this campaign saved my life. And that guy's actually giving me hope.
That said it to me too.
and
I
stuff
mean,
like-
it's incredible to hear and feel, and
Yeah,
you
you feel it.
it's real.
We feel it. We know the importance of what we're doing for those of you watching, and we will not stop fighting.
Yeah, we're
That's
gonna
true.
go all the way.
We
I
are.
say it all the time to people. What's harder, going from total anonymity to fourth place, or going from fourth to first? I think the hardest part's behind us. Going from fourth to first happens all the time in lots of contexts. So we've done the impossible already, and now comes the possible.
Yeah. Here we go. Okay, so we are going to a couple things. Keep asking questions. If you donate, we're going to try and call you. We're going to go on Quora right now because we've been on camera for now 2 hours straight, which the lights get a little annoying. But we'll be back. What time are we back after Quora? Poor Patricia. She's behind the scenes. I'm barking orders at her in an odd way.
We're back we're back after Quora at 5:45. We're doing Twitter Q&A. We might
Perfect.
film some of that, but then we'll be on film after.
So 5:45 Twitter, Quora between now and then. And then we're back on camera at, let's say 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
And it's going to be awesome. Andrew, anything you want to say before we sign off?
Thank you, Yang Gang. We'll see you very soon. Love you guys.
Bye, y'all.